Hey guys, I got a little project maybe you might be interested in. What I plan on doing is converting this 3-gallon oilless Harbor Freight air compressor into a totally silent air compressor. There's other videos out on YouTube. You can see them. If there's something you think you might be interested in, stay tuned. So here it is. I'm not going to do an unboxing on this thing. This tank, if you order it by itself, they can be pretty pricey. So Harbor Freight had a sale on this thing. It was $59, 64 bucks out the door. So you know, some of these videos, these guys have made these air compressors. They say for 20 bucks. For me, that wasn't going to happen. I figure by the time I get done with this, it's going to be more like $130, but that's chump change. There's actually a company that uses refrigerator air compressors for their product. And these things can go anywhere from, $400 or $500 to, $3,000. So this is the air compressor here. Basically, it's not good for anything other than airbrushing, which it states on the box. And maybe brad nailing with a gun. Any kind of sanding, pneumatic tools, this thing is not going to work. And they tell you that. The good thing is it has a drain valve. So basically I took a good compressor apart. It's a little too loud for me. I can't use this inside. I want something silent. So we'll go over a little bit on how I disassembled it. I did remove the screws already. I'm kind of one-handed here, so everything's already been loosened, and I'll give you a little bit of tips on how you're gonna get this motor off of here. First thing is you're gonna see 4 screws here on each side. You remove those, and this cap comes off like that. I did remove this cord already, but it's going to be plugged into the motor, and you're going to see this pressure switch. Get a little better view here in this port right here, and you're going to end up plugging that. What you're going to need is a 1/8" pipe thread plug. Don't get a cap, because you want to keep this lower than as low as possible, and you'll see what I'm talking about once we get into this. This is going to be a multi-part video, so we're not going to go over this whole thing. I'm just going to talk about a little bit about disassembly of this. So if you look at this pump here, there's going to be 2 screws here with the rubber dampers underneath, with and then 2 on the other side. And if you look at this, you'll see this clamp. These are non-removable. You're gonna have to cut that off with like a Dremel and a cutoff wheel. You only need, I almost recommend you cut both of these. Cut this one, because these fittings are in here super tight. They use some kind of clear goop as a thread sealant, and it's like red Loctite. It's almost like impossible to remove these fittings without rounding them off. And once you round them off, you're into something you don't want to get into. You're gonna have to drill, try to use an easy out, get some heat on it. So what I did was initially, these are 12 millimeter. I think it's something funkier than that. I don't know, maybe 11 and a half, but I don't have an 11 and a half. 12 wouldn't fit it. None of my standards would fit it. 12 was the closest. It's a little loose, but with that thread sealant on here, it's very easy to round these over. You can probably see it a little bit. I kind of filed them out because I thought I was going to reuse them. But when we go over the parts you're going to need to finish this off, I don't need them anyway. So what I did is I took a Dremel and cut this end off and pop that hose off. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. Took these 4 off, and then we're going to remove this pump. Okay, now we have the pump removed, and you can really see the plug that I ended up putting in there. I recommend you just use some Teflon thread sealant. And these are 1/8 inch pipe thread, which will be that fitting, this fitting, and this one under here will fit a regular threaded. It's a 1/4 inch pipe, but it'll fit your pressure switch, which you're going to need to put on here. This fitting right here, which incorporates a check valve, and I decided to change that out. It's cheesy. If I'm going to go through all this work, I want to be able to actually service it. And what it is just a pipe thread. I'll go ahead and take that off. And I'll see if I can get in here, but you see that little valve there? That's the check valve with a spring underneath. It's too cheesy for me. You know, I'm not going to trust that and then have to go back through and redo this whole thing. So let me go ahead and get that out of there, and then I'll show you those 2 components. So this is the check valve here. I hope that focuses there. But basically that little rubber end goes up in here. So air pressure goes in here and then it pops back up. I don't want to deal with that. So I went ahead and removed it. And when we go over the parts that you're going to have to use to build this thing, you'll see what I'm talking about. I went ahead and put this fitting back in because you're going to need a heat gun to get that out. I don't recommend you use a torch because all it's going to do is burn the paint. Unless you plan on repainting this thing, I might, I don't know. It's a heat gun, gets to about 1200 degrees. You're going to want to heat these fittings up. Any fitting almost that you remove off of this thing has that same thread sealant on here, including this manifold here. The pressure switch, which was located back here, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, there it is. It looks like that. It's screwed in there. You can get a wrench on that. I didn't need to put a heat gun on that, but you're going to want to save this stuff, even the motor, because you know you might find another project you can use this stuff for. I recommend you use a 12 millimeter 6-point socket on this, not a 12, because it is sloppy. Heat that up till just when you touch it with a paper towel, you can hear it sizzle, and then just, you know, about 10-15 seconds longer, but, you know, keep it off the paint, obviously, and keep your heat concentrated up here. Start threading that thing out. Once you break it loose, you're home free. If it doesn't break loose and you feel this thing starting to slip, you're going to want to stop. Heat it up a little bit more till it's like smoking if you have to. Because once you round this off, it's going to be next to virtually impossible to get that fitting out. So that's what I did. I heated it up to sizzling. You know, just touched it and, you know, you hear that. And, you know, it broke free. And I still had to heat it up just a little bit more, and I went ahead and ran that out. Okay, so the next thing, you're going to want to remove the stock regulator pressure switch, or not pressure switch, but the overpressure valve here. And we're going to reuse this. I may reuse this whole assembly. I'm not sure yet. We'll have to see how this thing goes. And just screw this whole thing off as an assembly. Okay, so now you're pretty much down to a bare tank. I've already installed that plug. I used Teflon, not tape, but thread seal. And I'll probably use it on all these. It seems to work better. So next thing we'll do is we'll move on to the things you're going to have to acquire in order to complete this.